Hello and welcome. This is Quest Complete, and today we are talking about the accessibility issue in fighting games as of recent. This is my wonderful cast. You got my fucking right hand man. We got fucking Benny.
Ayo.
Hey, that's Benny. And we got a good friend of mine, Manwich, showing up to give us a little rundown of what things used to be like back in the day.
Hey guys.
All right. So, Ben, you've got a lot of shit to get off your chest, so lay it on us. What's going on?
Okay, well, first, absolute disclaimer. I have only been taking fighting games in this seriously is a major air quote. Seriously for the past year and a half because I've just been really enjoying the games that I've played. Like I think Soul Cal was the one that really like Soul Cal 6 really got me into it, and then Power Rangers was just. But yeah, um, I just think that it's a weird issue to talk about because the developers see well, obviously you want to make money, so you want to
Obviously,
appeal to
that's
a new
that's the
mass,
bottom line.
right?
That's why you put anything to print. That's why you put shit in people's hands because you want the money.
Yeah. And my biggest problem with how they've approached accessibility is not that it's trying to reach out to new people. It's that it's taking away from what they made the specific game special in the first place. And I think that's where the major issue lies cuz like Strive, most people will agree, it's a good game. There's not a lot of problems with it. It's light on content, right? But there's not a lot of issues. But the major thing is for a lot of people is it doesn't feel like Guilty Gear anymore. It feels like a new game, like a completely different fighting game, more like footsie's based and neutral and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
from what I
Like
well,
Super
oh no, go right ahead, man. Which
like Super Turbo.
oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's basically footsies and like spacing and everything. Like that's what I'd always bring up is when I was fighting Ben. I was like, yeah, no, I put my fucking Street Fighter back to fucking use because I'm just fucking I'm throwing mids and I'm fucking spacing shit out. It's like you get an air dash in Strive. I'm just like, fuck. I wish there was a fucking air dash in Street Fighter.
It's more like air
Yeah.
move forward. I feel like dash is a little bit too
Still, but
generic.
the utility is still the
Oh
same.
no, yeah,
Like a box jump.
Yeah,
basically. But yeah, and I honestly, I really don't mind a lot of the accessibility changes. And then another big thing, and I know that I just sound like everyone else who's talked about this, where it's like taking away character options and making a game simpler does not make it better for new players. In fact, it can make it worse because then the high level players will learn the game faster and then immediately squash the lower players quicker. And it's just it, people just want to know how to understand your game easier, not have the game be easier for them. You know what I mean?
oh, exactly.
Yeah. They don't want to have a different experience. They just want to be able to share that experience.
Well, it's especially strange in fucking Strive because they have such a really unique way of doing online. Like you have region servers, which is pretty normal. I feel like most fucking fighting games should have something like that, so you don't end up fighting some dude in Africa that's got like 2 megabits a second, and you get fucking choked to death on the fucking bars. But like, there's also that towering system. So like, the more wins you get, like the higher you climb, you end up fighting people that are like at your level, and it's not set per profile; it's set per character that you use, right?
No, it's per you.
Oh,
So
really?
even if you go in with like a character you've never played before, you're still at floor 10 if you were there before.
I suppose that's where the park comes in, so you can get practice online with like if you're using a new character.
If you don't want to affect your floor change, yeah.
Gotcha. So you climb the floors, and so like you end up always being on par with like the people that you're going online against, and it's not just like, oh, you fight this guy that's like really fucking crazy, or you fight this guy that just started yesterday. It's like it's tiered, so you're always fighting somebody of like equal or close to at the very least. It's super unique, and it's really refreshing to see somebody like actually address the issue of like skill level in the online environment.
And they definitely found an interesting way to keep people from fighting each other. Because if you say are a floor twoer, you can go to any floor above. You can go all the way up to 10 if you want. But if you're a floor tenner, so like you've worked your way up there, you can't go down floors unless you lose a bunch. So smurfing is almost impossible.
And that's really good because like again that also is a huge address to like the fucking like twinking that goes on in fucking the online space, like even if it's unintentional, because it's completely random sometimes in some games where you link up with like a certain set of parameters and you could match up with just about but fuck anybody.
Yeah. But then,
Uh, there's also something to be said about the it doesn't always matter. It depends on who you're talking to. Some people don't mind fighting people who are just like way better than them or like worse, as long as like there's just like a stable connection.
That is
yeah,
true.
Like I don't mind going up against someone who's just gonna break my balls over and over again, as long as the connection's solid and I know why it's happening.
hmm
But I agree, though. It's good to have a system in place that can help tier players, because that's the skill gap in fighting game is significantly wider and more pronounced than in a lot of other video game genres.
I absolutely agree with that because it comes down to how much time and energy and just like also just you as a person, like what you're capable of, and like I suppose it's like the huge debate between like do you supposed to use a controller or is the arcade stick better, and it's like that a lot of stuff just comes down to like what character you're using, like how much time you put in, like if you're a veteran or if you like have a great understanding of like the basics and maybe you lack understanding of the more complex stuffs, and also like knowing matchups. So there's like a whole nother layer of like everything rather than just like in Call of Duty being all like this gun does this and this gun does this and these are the good spots to be. It's just like it's a completely different sandwich.
hmm. Yeah, and I feel like the tower system does go with what you said, Manwich, because it allows you to go up as much as you want. So like, if you really don't care about
Yes,
fighting people at a certain level, you can really just keep going until you get to the top, and like
just keep
immediately you can
running your
just
head
skip.
against the floor until you feel like you're doing better or you want to give up,
Yeah,
and that's perfect. That's a great system to have in place.
yeah, and it's choice based, which I think is how it should be. It shouldn't be
You can
like,
opt into doing that and not just be
yeah.
forced into doing that, which is very good.
Well, it would have been fun, like, cause like I'm a mid level player, is how I would say it, and it wouldn't have been fun to be like stuck at like floor 1 and 2 for a little
Yeah,
while and just have to beat people that I'm just mashing them into the ground and that's it.
that
Like,
they're literally like don't understand how to play the game, and you're just like, okay, whiff punish this over and over again. That's not fun either. That's not
yeah,
engaging.
it's not fun for me or them.
Yeah,
So yeah, but they placed me immediately at like floor 6. I don't know how. I don't know exactly how that CPU thing worked, but I it was crazy how much it worked. Like I was winning and losing at a consistent rate on that floor. So
yeah,
I don't know what was in that
I
pot,
think
but
that just has to do with like the player matches like you and the other boys have been doing, because doesn't that also increase your bounty or something like that?
it increases your player level, but it does not affect your floor at all.
Right, but doesn't player level also influence floor level?
No.
Oh,
Wait, you mean player level?
yeah.
I'm talking about like character level. Because character level is a thing, but that's just
Ah,
that's
okay. So I knew
not.
there's some kind of separation. So you're telling me there's character level and player level?
The floor is the only player level. The character
Gotcha.
level is just like a number that shows how much you've won or how many points you've gotten from beating people. It's
All
not
right.
doesn't really
It
show
doesn't
your
affect
skill.
anything. It's like a rough outline of like how much you've used that character, basically.
Yeah, it's just like basically a measurement of being like these people have played this character a lot, basically.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's probably the best thing about Strive. I would say for accessibility is the lobbies. I think that's probably the best way to get into it, and that has rollback, so it's really easy to fight people, and it works 70% of the time. I live in a place with terrible internet, so that's why it works 70% of the time, but it's pretty good elsewhere.
yeah. If a game that comes out in the year of our Lord 2021 doesn't come out with rollback netcode, then the developers are doing something completely wrong. Like I don't
Yeah,
understand how games can still come out without rollback netcode.
Like it's just
thankfully,
that good. Like it's at bare minimum, like almost a necessity at this point. Like just considering like how consistent you get like frame rates and also like syncing up of the characters in the fucking arena
oh yeah, did you know the
Yeah,
first beta didn't have it? Oof,
for
oof.
Strive.
People were not happy.
Oh
People were
shit.
raving up and down about how the game was just dog crap and all that. So
people who don't understand how netcode work often won't like rollback netcode because it looks weird. But if you actually understand why it's working the way it's working, then you'll understand why it's significantly better.
yeah, and as speaking for someone with terrible internet, making it just kind of okay internet actually works pretty well. Like
Yeah,
literally, I'll just stop playing if I have a bad internet day because yeah, I'm trying to work through and get levels and stuff, but like the person that's fighting me is probably having the worst time ever. Like so,
yeah.
I'm just gonna like stop. But yeah, okay. So then the one topic I also want to bring up is character options. So, how do you guys feel? Do you think removing options it makes it easier for new players, or do you think we should just keep the same amount of options and allow them better ways to learn how to use them?
Now that's a
Do
very
you
good
mean
point.
do you mean options from like the character select perspective, or do you mean options based on like individual characters' abilities?
Individual characters' abilities.
So like instead of a character having like 8 specials, they have like 2 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it really depends on the game. Like you have to take it on a game by game basis. If you look at a game like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, most characters only have 1 or 2 abilities, but the game is still incredibly deep. It's incredibly enjoyable because there's still always the rock paper scissors game that you have to be playing along with the footsies game. Just of understanding your screen positioning, your button presses, and your available options, even with a limited number.
Mm.
Um, but that sort of system also ends up rewarding fundamentals significantly more than a system with more complex character options. So it's more of a question of, do you want the game to reward your fundamentals more, or do you want the game to reward your game knowledge and your game speciality more?
I mean, if it boils down to that, I feel like players should probably be rewarded for the fundamentals because that's kind of the foundation of just about every fighting game is, what fundamentally makes it work. But it's also really hard because, like, player knowledge is also a really huge part, and I feel like people should be rewarded for not only knowing matchups, but also knowing what's safe and what is not safe, and, like, having proper spacing.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of like, you can make a stripped down fighting game, and that's fine. But it's not 1992. Like, we've already made Super Turbo. That's already a really good game,
Hmm.
and it's already really revered for what it is. Like, we can do better. We don't have to just make Super Turbo over and over
No,
again.
seriously, let's take chances. Let's make something different. Like maybe it's like hot garbage, but maybe at the very least, you tried to make something very interesting. Like I think I'd rather have hot garbage than like you said, super turbo over and over again.
Yeah, someone tried to make like a Third Strike clone about 10 years ago. It was called like Yatagaras or something like that, where it had like 4 characters, and each character had like, I think, like 2 or 3 specials. But it just failed to take off because I think like no one cared because it was just a Third Strike remake essentially. Like, they were like, okay, let's take the best parts of Third Strike, add some modern design philosophy, and but no one really cared about it because it's just like, oh, we have this game already.
Well, speaking about like stripped down fighters, like wasn't like how popular is dive kick still these days?
You'll see like a meme side event every now and then, but it's kind of died down.
No, that sucks. But
Still an incredibly fun game though.
no, seriously, like fucking in DMC1, my favorite attack with fucking Evritas is the fucking flying sidekick that you do when you double jump. Like dive kicking is cool.
Dive kick is a super, honestly, it's the game. It's not the most deep. I'm not going to say it's a deep and complex game, but it's just the bare minimum stripped down spacing and like matchup knowledge is what it comes down to, and it's just incredibly fun. You can just bust out a couple of rounds in 5 minutes and it's great.
Yeah, and so I guess you're right. That does, I guess, reward fundamentals because you're like you say, it goes down to like spacing and matchup knowledge. So on those two things, it gets the check, but it is awfully simplistic because don't you only have like a jump and an attack button?
You have a jump and a kick, and that's it. You
There's
can and you can kick back, so you can like jump backwards. And then most characters have like a special they can do, but only when their meter's full. So
gotcha.
it's very stripped down. It's very bare bones. It won't hold anyone's attention for super long, but it's a great little filler game, that I would never turn down playing if someone offered to play dive kick. I would always say I'd be down to play dive kick.
Okay, well here's the real question now: dive kick or Smash Brothers?
Oh, dive kick, so much better, so much more fun and engaging.
Thank you. That is all.
What? Well, now I have to play dive kick.
I'm not gonna hold dive kick up on a pedestal. I just genuinely don't find Smash Bros to be an engaging game.
That's
Um,
fair.
I do like. I find it engaging on certain aspects, but like there's just so much that comes down to like knowing fundamentals. Like it's overly excessive, like the amount of fundamentals you need to know, and then the character roster is so fucking huge. It's just like you'll never actually know every matchup in the game. Like to the point to where you can like have that knowledge and then know exactly when it's applicable and use it in that exact
Yeah.
situation. It's just like you're better off just playing like a quote unquote high tier character and just kind of like doing what is quote unquote safe and clean. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna write off Smash for any particular reason. I know a lot of people like it. I know it's a very high skill ceiling game and it has a lot of technicality to it. I just genuinely have never had that much fun trying to explore the game, and I would never really take time to explore it because it's just not that engaging to me.
dude, totally fair. Like I enjoy it for what it is, but I'm never gonna take it like seriously. You'll never find me in a fucking Smash tournament.
It's the same reason why I would never take as a I would never take that seriously. I know there are some people that do. I just don't have any interest in engaging in that at a competitive level myself.
Yeah, no, and I've already talked shit about Smash on Twitter, so I'm just like I'm not gonna smash on my podcast because I ain't that kind of guy, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So
But no, that's fair. I feel like that definitely is the question of like when it's a game that's trying to do that, that's fine and that's fair. But it's an interesting question as well for a franchise. And this is the difficult thing because if a developer wants to make a kind of different kind of game, they should be allowed to make a different kind of game. But it's difficult when you make it a sequel to a previous game, which was fundamentally very, very, very different. And I think that's where Strive is very different from Xrd because Xrd was like a very free flowing game where you had a bunch of different opportunities with all the character options, and there was a
Yeah.
ton of character identity because every character. Well, I mean, there's this awesome YouTube channel named Leon Massey who did a very fun breakdown of the character archetypes in that game, right? Where he said, like, this person is a mid range zoner and a rushdown character. And he basically just put different titles in front of rushdown because that's just how Xrd is. Xrd is just a rushdown game. You're just in people's face all the
Yeah.
time. And I feel like that's a good way to put why it worked. Was because every character still behaves in a very similar way, but there's a lot of different things that keeps them apart. And I think that's why so many people loved it was because every character felt so unique and interesting while also fitting into the game in a normal way that allowed them to like pick up new characters and only learn the unique parts, but they already got the other stuff down.
Yeah, it's great when a game can introduce new mechanics per character while also making the character feel organic.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously there's also the balance question, right? When you add in a new thing like that, it can be
Yeah,
very difficult for, especially because if other people don't understand what the other character is doing, it's
yeah,
going to be even worse. Like freaking uh Leo Whitefang in Xrd versus him in Strive. He's really strong in Strive with his back stance because he has counter and he could just attack fast. His normals chain together very quickly. But in Xrd, it's just astronomically worse. He can combo everything together super fast. He has an aerial thing that leads into back stance. He can almost do an Oki, but without like a freaking projectile, and it's just insane. This
yeah,
amount of stuff that he could do is just nuts. But once everybody kind of figured it out, he went from being like one of the hardest characters to play against to just a strong character.
now is
yeah.
that in Xrd or is that in Strive?
Um, I would just say him in Strive is just a slightly toned down version of him in Xrd. I mean, he's about to scale would be the way to put it.
I mean, that's how you describe Soul, and I'm pretty sure that's how you describe any character in that game because that game is very toned down. Like, I remember that video you showed me on like different uses for meter in fighting games, and like which meters were like considered good and which ones were considered just like okay. Well, like the things you're supposed to be able to do with a meter, but like in Xrd, like you have 4 bars, which is pretty
Well,
usual.
then, well, a full bar, but like quarters. You have
Right,
quarters
right. I
there.
mean, it's split in 4, but
Yeah,
you got the Roman cancel system, which is just absolutely crazy and insane in that game, and I still don't completely understand how it works, and I
it's
probably
objectively
never
better.
will. But yeah, you'd also have like supers and ultras, and like you can. use the Roman cancel defensively. You can use it aggressively. You can also just use it for the sake of using it. And it's a very weird way to spend meter because not only do you have like EXs and EX specials and like fucking supers and ultras, but you also have this other factor that can be used like 8 different ways, and it's just like you compare that to Strive, and like you say, this game has a legacy, this series, but like you go from XR to Strive, and it's just like if you look at the meter, you only have 2 bars of meter, and so they cut that in half. So a lot of times, from what you tell me at least, Ben, and from what I've seen of XR gameplays, it feels like it's kind of like half of what the other game used to be, which might be an overgeneralization, but like just look at the meters, like 2 bars less meter, man.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's not going to be this way forever. I
No,
feel like they definitely realize that a lot of people want a more engaging game, so they're just going to build off the bones. But I still feel like it's a good thing to talk about, especially if you don't like it. Then you should find um, healthy ways to critique it. Obviously, you don't just go Strive bad. Strive is not a bad game. Strive is very good.
no,
It
I love
just
it. It's super
feels
good.
kind of out of touch with what made Guilty Gear at the moment. Um, like I was gonna say, one of my favorite things to do with depth with the Roman cancel thing is you can Roman cancel any special or any super in Strive if you have the meter for it. When I'm playing Leo, I'll do his combo super, which is a 5-hitter, right, to apply pressure. And if I have another half a meter, the person's like, okay, cool. They're gonna go in the gap because he stops right before the 5th hit, and if you weren't comboing them, they could just run up and throw you or hit you in the face, right? Um, I will Roman cancel, get a low, and then get run through combo, and like freaking take advantage of that. So that's another layer of depth that's fun and engaging, but that's just a fundamental level, not a character level thing. So
Yeah, it also makes it so like not only you watching your meter, engaging your meter, you also have to gauge your opponent's meter because like a lot of times in fighting games, like when you have like EX attacks, it's like, oh no, they got a bar meter. That means they're gonna EX into fucking another special. But like in Xrd, it feels like not only do you have to watch your meter, you should probably also be watching your opponent's meter because that means they're
mm,
probably gonna, like you said, do some Roman cancel like shenanigans to catch you open. So
Yeah, but that's kind of a fundamental thing in any fighting game, that where the meter actually matters. Like in Super Turbo, for like if you're going to like bare bones, like first game with a meter, 90% of the characters you don't have to worry about their super, if they
mm,
have it. But then like the farther down the road you go, the more you have to kind of pay attention to everyone's meter, pretty much no matter what the game is, because it always gives them more options.
true, that is actually very true.
e-
Even just in like Street Fighter 4, a character having access to like an EX uppercut can completely change the game, compared to if they only had access to a normal uppercut or something like that.
mm. And I feel bad specifically talking about a game that not everyone knows about here, but
That's
there's
fine.
a
I
specific.
can. I've watched enough Guilty Gear, and I like I understand the gist of
Okay,
uh,
okay,
the
fair.
all the core mechanics of most games. So
You did
Alright, fair. Okay.
research?
I just watched games.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, it was super popular when it came out, so
I
it's
guess
kind
I'll
of
call
hard to
that
miss.
research. Sure, I watched a
Yeah,
Yeah.
video game.
yeah, research. Woo! Oh, that's
But
what my research in Xrd was just watching people play it. So
Yeah.
yeah. But in my opinion, and a lot of people don't agree with me on this, because they're like, "Oh, Ramlethal Valentine is amazing in Strive. She's super good. Yes, fun. Like character-wise, she's one of the strongest characters. She gets damage fast. Her damage doesn't scale that hard in the corners, so she could just combo you to death and get a wall splat, right? But in my opinion, fundamentally, they ruined the character idea. I'm not saying that she's like a bad character now and like shouldn't exist. I'm just saying they took the idea and completely threw it out because she was a pseudo puppet character. Wherever her swords landed, they could do a slash. Nothing super complicated, right? They
yeah,
could do a slash, and that could lead into setups or extend combos.
Hmm.
In Strive, she just throws them, and they hit the wall, and then she has to go get them to make her. And if you don't have your swords, your normals are short. That's it.
yep.
So she's like Vega,
Essentially, yes.
or like Cody with the knife.
Oh fuck! I always try to grab that knife, and you'd always beat the shit out of me for it. But I just want the knife.
I'm like, oh, you walking forward, buddy? Eat some crouch light kick.
You catch me with it every fucking time.
No, I'm gonna be real. It's really funny whenever I'm playing online, and a ram will throw both of her swords past me, and then realize that both of her swords are behind me, and she has to get through me to get to them. So, you know.
Well, they
But
also explode, so if she gets you in the corner, you're kind of fucked. 'Cause she can just stack
oh yeah,
them.
but I've had it. But since they go through you, even if you block them, so like they move across
Yeah,
the stage.
yeah, yeah.
Well, then if she does that in middle, because I've ran into some dumb rams, they just set themselves up for
Oh
failure.
yeah, no, I've done that shit. I play around with Grimlothal, and I've done that stupid shit before. Fuck, you've watched me do that stupid shit. But I'm just saying, like, when she plays like the fucking mid game and you're backing up, and then she throws them at you, and you're just like, ha! You got no swords. You're like, oh fuck, but I'm in the corner.
Well, the interesting thing is actually she has a very weak neutral game because she can't combo very well in middle, right? Um, but I have a very unique problem with Leo because you know how I have run through, right? I try to get behind somebody and then I'm in back stance.
Yeah, and you
Well,
get
if
a
I push
bullshit
them
cross
toward the
up.
corner, right? If
Yeah.
I get them close to the corner and I get run through, if she interrupts me once, I've already put myself in the corner, so she could get full combo and kill me. Like so, I have to watch that kind of stuff. That's it's still that's a lot of depth. But anyway, in my opinion, it's a little bit okay. I personally do not like like overall character changes like that where they lose identity and just go to a character with big normals and they can throw stuff sometimes.
Right.
I
But
just
like
think it lost
on the
its
other
charm.
side of that though, with the whole sword debate, like if you're just using your fucking your normals and you're doing good spacing with her, like essentially you wouldn't really need to throw the fucking swords because you could just catch your opponent open because she has a really decent anti-air and she also has a
Well,
really good fucking mid-range poke as
no,
well.
no. I'm not saying the character's bad. I'm saying I think it's ruined the philosophy that the character was going for.
No,
Because
and
now
I'm
she's
not
a
disagreeing with that, but like I'm just talking about like they've taken away the depth, so what you have left is the fundamentals, right? And I'm just saying those
yeah.
fundamentals are still very useful.
Did
I
they
guess
was this a change in a patch between
no.
patches on
This
Strive, or
is
was
between
this between
games.
Xrd and Strive?
Between
This is
Xrd
between
and
games.
Strive.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit different. Most characters in other franchises will go through those kinds of changes, and they'll play fairly differently between iterations in the same franchises. Like if you look at the Street Fighter games, yeah, your Shotos will generally play the same as they do in every
Yep.
iteration previously. But if you look at like how like M Bison plays between like 4 and 5, it's like pretty different. Or if you have how he plays between like CVS 2 and Street Fighter Alpha to Street Fighter 2, it's like a lot of the characters play fairly differently. So it's not the craziest thing when that happens, although it can be a little bit off-putting uh, for uh, for legacy players that liked a character for a particular reason in a particular game.
Yeah.
Quick tangent. Is Alpha M Bison still your favorite M Bison, or is 5 M Bison actually really good?
Oh man, I hadn't played 5 in so long. I had to put 5 down because it was just so boring, dude. But 5 Bison was cool, but like Alpha Bison's just the best, dude. He's got a projectile. He can't beat that.
Is he still a charge character in the Alpha series?
No, he has motion inputs.
Hell
He has
yeah. That
he has
explains
half
why.
circle.
Well, fuck. Like going back to like your iterations things, just like it was so jarring because like Cody in 4, you know how his fucking tornado attack was like it was
Yeah,
back and then punch.
like a quarter
In
circle back
yeah,
punch or something.
in 5 it's quarter circle forward punch. So then
Yeah.
that started totally messing with my flow of my like, throwing out like my normals and stuff in conjunction with that. And so it took me so long. And he also doesn't have the knife, which sucks. But
It's funny how those changes can actually make like a fairly subtle difference in how you play the game as well. The fact that your inputs end up making your stick end in a forward position rather than a backward position can change how you play the neutral sometimes, which is
Hmm.
interesting.
which is true because that made me start using more heavies. Because if I follow up in the forward position, I can throw out a heavy and then I can chain it into the fucking bandit slide or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yep.
So that started becoming my bread and butter, and like it's also pretty useful, especially if you're playing a character that's like a grappler or something. It's like, oh, I just fucking slide before he can grab me.
Yep.
I also find myself doing that with Soul, because Soul also has a move that's super similar to Cody's fucking kick attack, except
And
he's in a low stance, so he can like go under people's projectiles and totally just catch them
Mhm.
open.
makes me so mad.
So it's so satisfying. It's so good. I love it. It's like fucking the best between like Cody's mid kick and fucking Dudley's like input dash. It's like the perfect combination between those two.
Yeah. I haven't played Street Fighter 5 since season 1.
And that's totally
Watching after
fair.
season 2, it's the same thing I was talking about earlier, though. It's like, yeah, I put a lot of time into learning the game, and then they just like overhaul the system or overhaul the characters, and it's just I feel like I don't want to play that much anymore.
Hmm.
Speaking
But
of,
that might just be a me problem, though.
well, speaking of overhauls, like, is the netcode still like shit? Because I keep hearing people say like it's like really like it's got rollback, but it's like a really fucking weird janky ass rollback.
It's playable. It's just not a very fun game. It's super bare bones without offering like a ton of engaging gameplay, in my opinion.
Well,
I
how
don't love
much?
the
Well, how
crush
much?
counter system.
The what system?
The crush counter system.
What's that?
That's when if you get a counter hit, they go into a crumple state. If you get a
Oh
counter hit with
shit!
your specific buttons.
Oh, so that's what that is. Yeah, that's also in Strive, as well.
Yeah.
Like they fall slower. Yeah, you remember when like you see the big words that come across the screen say counter, and the character falls
Oh.
slower. And so you can
Actually,
like I could follow up with like a Fafnir out of like fucking Gunflame or like my mid triangle attack.
yeah, counter hits. It's
Exactly.
not just the damage; it's the properties of the hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in Street Fighter V, they had a system called Crush Counter, where generally one or two of a character's buttons, usually the heavy buttons, would or maybe it was just every heavy button. I think it was just every heavy button would, if you got a counter hit while using that button, it would do what was called a Crush Counter, which would then put the opponent into a crumpled state, which would give you different follow-ups than what you would normally be able to do with even just a normal counter hit.
That sounds really fucking interesting.
It
You know,
it was cool, but it got kind of boring because it ended up with this rock paper scissors game on Oki, where you're
Oh.
just like, okay, are they gonna go for a throw or a crush counter? Like basically every time, and it's like if they go for a crush counter, you lose with these options, and if they go for a throw, you lose with these options.
But that plays back into like knowing the matchups and stuff. So even if it does come back to that, it's just like if you know the matchup, like I would hope that there's only so many matchups where it's like if you're boned if you do the throw, but you're and other matchups where you're boned if you do the fucking crush counter. But like if there's any matchups where it's like you're boned if you try either one, that'd be totally fucked.
And I played Bison in that game too, which gives it's a little bit of bias because he played that crush counter Oki game. Like that's kind of what it seemed like his character was designed around, was
Which
taking advantage of the crush counter
well, which
system.
makes a lot of sense. Hang on.
okay, I mean, again, I'm speaking about fundamentals, but
Yeah.
I do find it interesting when you just have to let the character do something, so like let them do something.
Yeah.
Like he was talking about Soul Bad Guy. Soul Bad Guy has a wake up DP that everyone uses because it's so safe, or at least it used to be so safe, and it still kind of is. 'Cause
It's
if you can
kind
get
of
a hit
safe.
off-
Sometimes I use the heavy one, but like I've noticed that the light one's like a lot more safe just because it's faster.
Yeah, but it's really fun because if you run up on a soul while they're down, you can then just do a quick backdash because you'll be out of the range, bait them into the hit, get an air counter, and full combo. So Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind that sort of system at all. Like I think it adds a lot of interesting depth. Like the Oki game is some of the most interesting that can occur in a fighting game, beyond the neutral game. But I don't like it when a game's entire identity feels like it revolves around like that specific 50-50 on wake up.
yeah,
I feel like we can do better with our games.
I mean, maybe if characters had like wake up options.
Yeah, like the wake up options in Street Fighter V, at least in season 1, were pretty much awful. If you the wake up but that was kind of I feel like that was kind of a knee jerk reaction to the wake up options that were available in Street Fighter 4. Because in Street Fighter 4, a bunch of characters had really great wake up options, and you also had the EX cancel system, which made it so even if you did an unsafe one, you could EX cancel out of it on reaction if they blocked. But
What
I don't know.
is refresh me, what is the EX cancel?
It's when you in Street Fighter 4 you had 4 bars of super meter. You had one super meter that was broken up into 4 bars,
Yep.
and you could spend one of those bars on an EX attack, or you could spend 2 of them on an EX focus cancel.
Oh fuck, I remember that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never
and you could
bothered with that
focus
because it was
cancel,
crazy.
like you could focus cancel most specials and most normals on hit or block, not on whiff. So you could
Okay.
do like if you were like a Ryu, you could go, okay, say they're coming up to you on your Oki on the wake up. If you did an uppercut into EX focus cancel, you could beat a lot more options than you would with just an uppercut, because if they block, then you end up canceling out and you're still safe.
Right. I mean, I guess that's also kind of like the Roman cancel system because essentially what that is you spend
Like
a
a really
meter.
ghetto Roman cancel
Yeah,
system.
pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah, it seems like low
Roman
key not
Roman
as good.
cancel was a lot cheaper, so you would see that a lot more
Right.
frequently. Whereas EX Focus cancel, it took up essentially half of your bar, so you would only get like maybe one around, and
No.
that's if you built a lot of
And it's
meters.
also extremely situational. Like I feel like that's more like a tool in the kit rather than like a full on like mechanic that
Yeah,
happens.
it wasn't a fundamental mechanic
Yeah.
to every exchange, whereas the Roman cancel it was involved in almost every not I won't say almost every exchange, that's pretty wide sweeping, but in a vast majority of cases you have to consider Roman cancel.
Right. Well, it's just such a Swiss Army knife. It's like a lot of times it's like it's one of your better options.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I don't have a good segue to the next thing I want to talk about.
Well,
Um,
what you the next thing that you want to talk about? What is it?
um, going into uh, so this is a really weird thing, but actually
Well, just
complements
lay it on
games
us.
that try to emulate Smash in a very, very small way. Very, very small way, which is having most inputs be the same over characters, right? But
Yeah.
then the inputs lead into so many different things, the characters still feel very different, and you still have to use those things in very different ways. But learning a new character isn't super hard because, oh, okay, it's probably like a quarter circle motion. Okay, cool, that's a special or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think the Strive did a really good job with that because, my opinion, my least favorite thing about the older Guilty Gears was forward, back, forward, half circle, or like quarter circle forward, then half circle back in the
Yeah.
air. So you have to do that before you hit the ground. It's ugh.
Yeah,
Right.
those are some of the more difficult inputs, but it also feels extremely rewarding when you can hit them consistently,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like I agree that in general it's better to just have the easier to access inputs, but also like that they can also use inputs as a balancing system, right? Like if you have a pile driver that's a full circle input, it makes it a lot harder to have access to it at more intervals, right? Like if you're trying to play a neutral game, you can't just be option selecting with the full circle, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
if it's not air okay either, then like if you do
Yeah.
it in the air, then it's just not going to come out.
So you can use more complicated inputs as a balancing measure as well. But for the most part, I agree that like a lot of modern games I've noticed have started taking out the Shoryuken input, which is a really big roadblock to newer players, which is the forward down down forward input. Like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which like isn't really that new anymore, but it replaced all of those with just down down inputs. I've also noticed
Wow.
just more games frequently don't have the Shoryuken input anymore.
Yeah, that's the one thing I did not like about Marvel Infinite is because like I just recently gotten good at doing that input and like it wasn't in that game anywhere. I was just like, I don't think I want to play this game
And
anymore.
now it's in Strive, and it's some of the character's strongest moves.
Yeah.
So,
It's not that bad once you know how to do it, and it feels
yeah.
super good once you know how to do it. But it's it can definitely be a wall that
Oh
people
yeah.
will run up against. It's even just like that input sound is like super simple to a veteran fighting game player, but like a new player is gonna like struggle for hours trying to learn that input.
Oh yeah. I got
No,
turned on to
seriously.
Skullgirls because of that.
Yeah,
Came back to it though. Really good game. Um. Yeah. No. It's actually specifically speaking about the input balancing thing. I think there were some ways that they did that in the older ones that I liked. That I don't think they should have got rid of. Deluge, do you know Potemkin's Heat Knuckle? Where if he catches you in the
Yes.
air, it's like a Gatling, and then it launches you across the stage.
Yep.
That was a multi-input before. When you grabbed them, it would do one explosion that did decent damage, but if you did half circle back heavy slash while you were holding them, it would extend it for free. But you had to time it.
Well, what's the
So
initial input though?
oh, same as before. It's the Shoryuken with heavy slash while they're in the air. So
Gotcha. Oh, so
yeah.
it's like it's just a full on air attack.
yeah, basically it's an anti-air.
Oh, anti-air. Okay, so you're not in the air. The opponent's in the air.
Yeah,
Okay. And then half
and it would
circle back. I mean, as far as
now it's an automatic
inputs
extend.
complexity go, like the Shoryuken's probably the hardest one, and then the time half circle isn't too hard. Like I still struggle kind of with Shoryukens, but half circles, I honestly, in my opinion, I prefer half circles to quarter circles because they're just so much easier to get out on like a controller.
Well, if you've seen any of my if you saw my video of me doing the combo trials in Strive, or not Strive, Xrd. That's literally how I do quarter circles, and I just do half circles. But like, hopefully they're not sharing that kind of input with something else, so I could just do that.
Well,
Oh
that can
man.
also lead to very interesting like option selects too, right? Like
Yeah.
based on the input required for specific specials, it can also option select with other specials, which can be very interesting. Like if it's like a quarter circle forward heavy, if you depending on the game and the input system, that can oftentimes if like the grab is also say forward and heavy, you can end up with option select where you're like, okay, it can either be the special or the grab depending on how the opponent reacts.
Yeah.
Um, which kind of dovetails into the idea of like inputs, like complicated and semi-complicated inputs are definitely a huge identity uh, of fighting games, right? Like it has been ever since Street Fighter originally came out.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of a wall to learn how to do the inputs, especially as a newer player. A newer player might be happier with like kind of the Smash style inputs, so that's just like pretty simple, forward or backward and a button. But it's just like a huge identity with the genre, right? Like it's kind of hard to take that away, even if it does make more sense and by modern gaming standards to just have them be like specific inputs and like a button or something like that.
But
Well, I
well,
mean,
I know games like Tekken. I know Tekken gets like a lot of shit for having like crazy, stupid, complicated inputs that just like are a fucking long ass string of just consciousness. But like going back like to Smash style ish inputs, like if a game like because I've been doing what's it, it's called Ultra Age, and so it's kind of like it's well kind of like it is a hack and slash, but I noticed it does something really crazy with the combo like attack inputs because you have just your light and your heavy. So basically, what you want to do is you want to do light attacks and then follow it up with a heavy attack, and that changes the attack, which is actually really cool. But in like
that is
typical
super
hack and
interesting.
slashers, it's like because let's use Bayonetta, because Bayonetta is super freeform. You basically like have a punch button, a kick button, and a gun button. But you can chain different kicks and punches together to get like super attacks, which are called Wicked Weaves, which is just it's super freeform and it feels so good. But like the only directional inputs you have is like forwards, which is a stinger, which just is for closing distance, or you have back, and then you can do back either punch or kick, and that's just a straight up launcher just to get enemies into the air. But in
But
Ultra Age, it's just the amount of light attacks you do followed by a heavy attack changes your input. There's no
right,
directional anything to do with it. Like
so
it's
so
really
it's like
simple,
some Dynasty
but
Warriors games.
yes, it's really
Okay.
simple, but I enjoy it because of its simplicity, you know? But in a game like DMC5 that has like a bunch of really complicated directional stuff, like with Nero, which is the simple character in that game, like he has 5 or 6 attacks that are like entirely dependent on like what input you do directionally. Like he's got one in the air for forwards, he's got one in the air for holding back on the stick, and he's got another one in the air which is back forwards, and then an attack, and then like you start chaining these things together, and it's just like I don't know how badly I want my hands to hurt after this, but with like a game like Ultra Age, it's just like all I gotta do is count the amount of lights and then see which heavy I want to follow up with depending on the situation. So like if you, a game like Tekken compared to like Street Fighter or Strive, it's just like, why would I want to do all these crazy inputs when I could just like, zone people with like normals and then like the simple specials, you know?
It's definitely an interesting conversation because there's games like Street Fighter that are fairly stripped down, mostly about spacing, neutral footsies, that kind of thing. But then there's games like the Versus series that are built on long, intricate combos, crazy inputs, all that kind of stuff. And you
Oh
know me,
yeah.
I love the Versus series. Um, but there's kind of a fine line to play, right? Like it's like we could have a fighting game, and there's been ones that have been made. I don't remember the name of the one that Filipino Champ was championing for a while, where
Well,
it's literally like a
okay.
fighting game, but like there's no inputs. There's no like directional inputs at all for specials. It's literally you just hit a button.
I don't mind that so
Um,
much because I have a bad habit of holding onto the stick when I'm doing stuff.
That's actually kind of how it works in Power Rangers. They mirrored Smash specials where it's neutral X, back X, or forward X. That's it. That's
but
it for
like
stuff.
there's some things like that. There's good and bad with that, right? Like it's
Right.
like good that you can always have access to your specials, but it's also not that good because it can change. If you have specific specials you're looking to use in neutral or as whiff punishes or whatever, it changes how you want to play your neutral. Like like how you're like churning your stick while you're walking back and forth. It can also change the ease of access you have to specific specials. Like it's harder to go into a Shoryuken from a crouching position.
That's true.
But also it feels super good to execute on your super great combo, right? Like
Mm.
you're like, oh man, I nailed the timing perfectly on this thing in like a really tense situation, and I feel really proud about it. But also, there's like drops that are like a real factor in games, right? So it's like if you're doing a long, complicated combo, or just like like a Rekka with like a really precise follow up,
Right?
and you drop it, that's a really big deal too, and it builds up these moments that like you wouldn't have access to if it was just like a really simple cut and dry thing, right?
No, seriously. Like I've had moments where like, because I've got a character who's one of his specials is like double quarter circle and then an attack button, but sometimes that double quarter circle gets read by the game as a half circle, and I end up doing a completely different attack, and that totally screws me over, especially if I'm hugging the corner.
What are you talking about?
But
Like,
it's like, yeah, and it's like
yes,
if that happens to you, and it's and your opponent that you're playing does that, then it gives you a new opportunity, a new lease on life. You can try again, and that wouldn't have happened if it was just a simple to execute thing.
that's true.
So there's like pros and cons to that kind of accessibility level, right? Like I understand wanting to be able to bring more people into the game, but also there's kind of this legacy of this sort of style of input in these style of games, and it's been popular for a reason. It changes the dynamic of the game a lot more than like it kind of reads on the surface level.
No, and you are definitely right about that, because like, even though I whiffed the fucking super, like the super is just so powerful and devastating. Like, to be honest with you, I don't really mind when I whiff it because I know when I do actually get it and it does land, I know it's gonna be like game over, bro.
Yeah,
To be fair, the one you're talking about is literally catching. It's the catch people super.
Yep,
You just catch people pressing buttons with that thing.
I know, and
yeah.
it's
It's
so
like
much fun.
Spencer in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has a super that's literally just quarter circle back to attack buttons. That's a it's he just has like a giant hitbox that hits about half the screen. It's
Oof.
invincible for like 80 frames or something crazy, and it's just a great punish tool. But it would be even easier to use if it was just like a single button, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It just changes. It just changes how a lot of games would be played. I think if the inputs you have to build your game with that sort of idea in mind, I suppose.
Right, like input difficulty should like determine how much, like how devastating and applicable like that attack should be.
Yeah, like if it's like a big Shoryuken you could do from like half screen or something. It's like if you look at like Under Night and Birth that has moves like this, but they're generally tied to like quarter circle, half circle inputs or something like that. You can't just bust it out in a split second. It takes a
Hmm.
little bit of you have to be like mentally engaged, ready to perform that input. You can't just like react with that input.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
No, and
and
that is a good point.
leading into a little bit of that, there was an issue that came out with a character that just came out. Well, not just like in August. It was
Which
July.
character?
Gold Lewis Dickinson.
Oh fuck.
He was given, in my opinion,
Yeah.
probably the coolest character gimmick, which is spin the wheel, where it's like half circle in any direction, so 8 different routes for a
Um,
specific special.
that's interesting.
But since every character can get so much damage off of easy combos, he's an execution character in a game where everybody can do the same amount of damage with the least amount of thinking.
Yeah. No, I can Unga Bunga Gold Lewis like
Oh,
no
it's
time
always right.
flat. Like,
It's on its face half the time.
although to be fair, if the Gold Lewis knows what he's doing, like, because I have a very distinct pattern when I play Souls, so I'm pretty easy to read. So I may win the first round, but if the Gold Lewis was paying attention and wasn't just freaking out and hugging his coffin, um, next round I might be taking like an L, and then the round after that as well.
Yeah. Um, but also going into inputs because we were talking about supers, right?
Yes.
Um, I think my least favorite thing about Strive right now, which I prefer a lot more about Xrd, every single super in the game is invincible on startup. So it's a small amount, but if you can catch someone attacking you, you can use it as a reaction. I'm pretty sure they did this, and I could be wrong. So I'm assuming here. I'm pretty sure they did this for people who didn't want to figure out how to end combos with supers and would rather just use them as reaction safety tools. And I like it because you get to see more supers more often, but at the same time, it sucks to get a ram, like down a Ramlethal, and her to pull out her like instantaneous explosion super on reaction and kill me with just a single decision. It's
Yeah,
just a little. I'm not saying that that some supers shouldn't have it. Some
no,
should. I'm just
no.
saying that there should be a variety in how supers function instead of pretty
Instead of
identically.
all just being like punish tools, essentially.
Yeah,
Essentially, yeah.
it's smarter to
Yeah,
use them as safety than
it's
combos.
it's annoying when you feel like you have a good read on a situation and they kind of bust out this haymaker out of the blue. I think that supers are generally better when they're. I think it's cool when that's more of a unique trait that a super can have, where it's like, oh, I'm playing this character and they have this amount of meter. I should be looking out for this super on Wake Up, where rather than, oh, I'm playing any character
Yeah,
and they have this amount of meter,
yeah.
so they can do anything to me. So I have to, it just makes it feel like a lot more of a gamble when that becomes the case, which was kind of like the ultra combos in Street Fighter 4, where like 90% of them were just like they had hitboxes, they had a ton, so they weren't just like reactionary things, and they had a ton of uh, invincibility on startup. So it's like you could just randomly get got by them. They barely ever worked Wake Up on good players, but they still sometimes worked. Um, but it's like if it's cooler when it's more of a unique thing than just something that every character can potentially have access to.
And
Yeah,
that is
and
actually a good point, but you also have to keep in mind, like, in Strive, there's no distinction between Super and Ultra. It's the same bar used for the same thing. There's just two
yeah, each
different
character has different
attacks.
supers. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
also played
Well,
games
tomato,
where
tomato.
I've played games where raw supers, like supers that weren't put at the end of a combo, can't kill you, which is an interesting mechanic too. So it's
That,
like say they wake up with a super,
yes.
and it would be enough to kill you. It would just put you at 1 pixel.
That, like, I both love and hate that, because, like, if you
Yeah,
get, like, random face cannon, like, you can be like, okay, now you're going down, motherfucker. But, like,
yeah,
on the other half, it's just like, only got a magic pixel too, and I just face cannon. What happens next?
yeah,
So,
yeah. So it's. I'm not saying it's good. That design is good or bad. It's just an option that's available. There's no perfect way to design a game, obviously.
no, and it
Yeah.
should be open to interpretation, because, like, if the game was just like, oh, you got face cannon, you're dead, it'd be like, well, what distinguishes this from any other face cannon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason it makes me sad, not just because it's frustrating to get hit by it, it makes me sad because my favorite combo with Nago Ryuki, is his low special, his Beyblade counter. Like if you can land it and get the counter hit, the combo off of it is really strong even without meter because well, it's counter hit. But if you cut the combo short in the middle, you can actually get a pretty low scaled version of the super and have a very fun combo, right?
Yeah.
But with how most Nago Ryukis play and how much most anybody plays the game, they save their meter and use it as reaction because
Because it
It
just
just uses it as
functions better.
a
Yeah.
reversal. It just works better as a reversal tool.
But you also have
yeah.
to keep in mind that, like, Nago has, like, a suicide mechanic where, like, if you're not playing carefully, he'll
Well, he is
start
the only
draining his
character
own
that can
HP.
special cancel into specials using his life.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess that's like another side of it, is like, I suppose maybe that's why it's like that way, because of his, like, particular,
Because
like,
people are
unique
scared.
mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were scared for a long time. Then you just started embracing that shit. And I was just like, okay, now I'm the one that's scared.
He's such a fun character once you get used to it because it's like you can either get explosive damage or you can like um sprinkle in the danger with using the special cancels. But you don't have to use it all at once. You can literally play that character in so many different ways just with a simple meter management. And that's it. He doesn't have any more specials than any other characters. Like it's just yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You want to give options to the person who's been downed, obviously, and you're doing OP, but you also don't. You're supposed to be at a disadvantage when you get knocked down, right? So it's
Yeah,
like you don't want to give them the farm. You don't want to make it you don't want to give them more options than the person who's performing Oki, but it's a very hard balance to try and strike, right?
I mean, there's
Thankfully,
always like the default invincibility when you down your opponent, but like of course you're always going to wait and try to catch them as soon as they stand up and their invincibility's over. But
oh, dude,
you can't just
Yeah, like
rely on the invincibility when you're getting up.
yeah, it kind of goes back to the crush counter system in Street Fighter
Hmm.
Five. Like they obviously wanted to make meaty attacks better again because meaties were very strong in Street Fighter Three. Not oppressively good because there was a ton of options in that game on Wake Up because of the
Yeah.
parry system.
Well, there's
But
also
then
you
like
could spam mids and you can use that to build meter if somebody was trying to zone you.
yeah, and but in Street Fighter 4, meaties basically didn't exist because of the focus attack system, which would just absorb them for free on reaction. But then in Street Fighter 5, they're like, okay, people like meaties. They add an interesting dynamic to Oki, which I agree. Meaties add an interesting dynamic to Oki, but then they kind of took it a little step too far, I think, with the crush counter system. But I don't know. I'm not a game developer. I'm just a person who's played these games off and on. But that's just kind of my observations.
Right, but it's also important to like take fucking criticism from like people who have played these games and like maybe apply it to the next project or maybe tweak the system that's already in place.
Yeah, I
and
mean, there's just no perfect system, honestly. At the
No,
end of the day, it's
seriously.
like there's always going to be a problem with this system or that system.
Right. But
And I think in general, simplicity is generally the best way to go.
yes, but not overly simple, but like we said like way earlier, it's just like yeah, there's always going to be problems with specific games, but like I feel like at the end of the day it's better to focus on like what the game does right and enjoy that rather than just getting caught up on like the hot garbage over in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
also the biggest disclaimer that I want to make here is, um,
Yes.
literally on Xr's release version, so the first Xrd
Yes.
Sign, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the same portion of the community had the exact same feelings they're having now with Strive. This isn't like Guilty Gear anymore. Why did they get rid of meter specials? Why is it only just supers now? All that stuff. They had these opinions, and then the game got better with time because ArcSys was working on it and trying to make it a more enjoyable experience while
Yeah,
also
and
still maintaining
ArcSys
balance.
is in my experience, ArcSys is like a super engaged developer. They feel very different from like Capcom.
Yeah.
Because it feels like every time they put out a patch for one of their games, it feels like they're actually taking community feedback in. Like I stopped playing Dragon Ball Fighters after the second season or something like that, but I still have kept up with looking at the game and kind of like looking at the patch notes and stuff, and it seems like they're generally making improvements every single time they release a patch, which is good.
Well, also, did you hear how they put out the information for the Strive patch? They actually did
No,
a really interesting thing. They would tell you what they changed, and then put 3 or 4 paragraphs in of why they changed it and what they're trying to achieve
interesting.
by
Yeah, that's
changing
cool.
it. Yeah, so they're trying to tell us why they're doing things
They're
instead
like,
of just
these
doing
are
it.
our thoughts behind why we did this, not just here's the patch notes.
No, like
Yeah.
well, unlike
Like we can interpret
fucking
why you wanted to do this, but like
yeah.
well, I'll do you one better where it's like fucking what is it? It's like Capcom Studio 2 or whatever, the one that does the fighting games. They'll just tweet I remember they tweeted out something about fucking Street Fighter 5 like we fixed the netcode. Quote unquote fixed. There weren't any patch notes. They didn't say jack shit. They didn't elaborate. They didn't even layman's term. They're just like, we fixed it. And it was just the same fucking shit. And like nobody could figure it out. People were going through the code and people were looking and testing things out, and it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Just tell us.
So
Jesus.
bad.
Oh god.
Yeah, Capcom's just in a whole nother thing. The only reason they've kept it going as far as they have is because of the Street Fighter franchise.
Honestly, I feel like if Biohazard RE7, if that game didn't sell like it was made out of fucking chocolate diamonds and fucking crack cocaine, like I don't even think they'd be a company right now. That game pulled them
Oh,
back from the brink.
Capcom is always flying by the seat of their pants, bro. And
I
it's
mean,
not the fighting games that are keeping the lights on at Capcom. let me
no,
tell you.
that's true. That is true, but that's also like one of their bigger fucking legacy franchises is the Street Fighter
Yes.
franchise because they have so many
Yeah.
entries and it's so well liked. But
Hey,
what?
so a deluge. Totally off topic.
Yes.
If we were to say, totally not get a game illegally on PC, like through like Fightcade or something like that.
Oh
but
my God.
maybe play like one of the older Darkstalkers games together.
I love Darkstalkers. Why you gotta fucking twist my arm to get me to play
No, I'm
Darkstalkers?
saying it like this because it's like a meme because it's like it's pirating, so you don't really want to say it. You know?
I'm going to steal Darkstalkers. Come and get me, motherfuckers.
Do you play on Dolphin?
I thought that was for like the Wii.
I don't know. I've just been playing. What is it? Tatsunoko versus Capcom on Dolphin.
Ah, okay, that's why you say Dolphin, because Tatsunoko vs. Capcom's a Wii game. Yeah, Dolphin's just for emulating Wii games.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I've only ever played a TVC on it. You can also play Fightcade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I use Citra, because that's for 3DS games. I emulate certain versions of certain games that Capcom put out on the 3DS that will remain anonymous.
Yeah. I have the man, I got so much use out of the Street Fighter Legacy Collection. I just picked it up on PS4.
Oh, shit.
I've gotten a lot of
Oh.
play out of that.
Fuck, is the Alpha series on that?
Yeah, the Alpha. I think they just have Alpha 2, which is the good one.
Oh, good. I may pick that up because I've never played the Alpha series.
Yeah, I play Super Turbo on it a lot, and a little bit of Third Strike, but
I do love me some Third Strike. Like, I keep hoping they'll bring 12 back at some point.
no, that's never happening, bro.
Well,
They're
fuck
never
you
bringing
too.
back 12,
Well,
bro.
fuck you with a big rusty post.
12's a piece of shit. No one gives a fuck about 12.
Fuck you. I like 12. 12 was fun and interesting. And his air dash was a pterodactyl.
It's a fucking miracle they brought Oro back from the dead.
Right?
They got rid of his
Fun,
cock
too.
and balls.
Ah, fucking. Well, he used to have two little Orbeez he'd throw out.
He could throw
No,
orbs.
you used to be able to see up Oro's skirt when he was in a crouch animation.
Oh, fuck, seriously?
What?
That guy was free balling.
Well, to be fair, he's like a fucking one-armed turkey, so,
Oh,
like,
do you guys want to
He's
hear
not-
a really
it-
dumb thing?
He doesn't have one arm. He just fights with one arm tied behind his back because he's too based.
but he's still a turkey, though, right? That's what he was. He was a giant turkey.
He is the weird turkey man.
Okay.
With his nuts hanging out.
Okay, well,
Think
if
of-
they can bring that pile of trash back from the dead, why can't they fucking put fucking undig the fucking grave from 12 and fucking put him back in fucking Street Fighter?
Because
Like,
Oro was a well-loved legacy character with a unique playstyle. 12 was a not cared about legacy character with a unique.
but you will admit he has a unique playstyle.
It was uniquely stupid, yeah.
Fuck you.
Uniquely trash.
Alright, let's fucking segue. What are we talking about now? I want to fucking...
Plus, because you know how you said you could.
Oh, yeah, because you're
we-
mad now, okay.
I will kick you out of the fucking... the
This
moon.
conversation's
Alright.
not going the way I wanted it to.
Oh
So
no, the podcast has turned against me. Help! Quick, play me out, Benny.
You know what they did in Excerpt because they knew people would try to look up the girls' skirts.
Yes.
In the
Yes.
figure viewing mode.
Yes.
For some reason, they added the detail for one of the characters where, depending on the day, they changed their underwear every day.
That's actually really cool. Like, there's not a
That's
whole lot
so
of developers that would fucking code that into a game.
Oh,
They'd
and
be
she,
like,
and she has holiday underwear too.
oh, that's
So-
awesome. Like,
I
well,
don't
a
know
lot
what
of
that
times
was.
it's just like, oh, the panties are striped. When are the panties not striped? They're always fucking striped. Give me something else for the love of God. You know?
But no, and like, but anyway, going back to like overall things, I think it's okay for a developer to try to make a game more geared toward newer players. But I think what they need to understand is that the philosophy needs to be good first. Like the philosophy needs to be, let us just help people understand our game while still keeping it for the most part our game. You know, not
Yeah.
changing the game overall just for new people.
There's also something to be said. It's easy to make a new game with the same franchise. You
Yes.
know, like let's make a new Guilty Gear game.
Yeah.
Because then you get a lot of the legacy fan base in.
Yes.
But then you add more accessibility options, which makes it easier for new players to pick up. But then you kind of have these disenfranchised legacy players as well. But it's like, there's like, okay, so what if we just made a whole new fighting game franchise and made it more accessible? But it's by the same studio that makes Guilty Gear. Well, then you end up with kind of this kind of weird disconnect where you have the legacy players aren't turned off by that because it's not like, it doesn't feel like they're tainting the legacy of Guilty Gear or whatever of it being very difficult to get into fighting game. But it's not going to do as well if it's just like a third party thing, right? It's like, oh, this isn't Guilty Gear, this isn't Blaze Blue, this isn't Street Fighter. You know, it's like, I don't know, just make up some franchise and this is it. This is the game. This is the bit emoji fighting game. I don't know.
Well, the
But
reason like companies are so willing to do legacy projects is because of the established fan base, and they don't have to market as heavily. With like a new
yeah,
IPs are so risky because you need to heavily market them. Because if you can't
yeah, there's
get
a
your
lot
new
more
IP
product.
into the hands of consumers, you might as well just flush that money down the toilet because the gaming industry is so overly saturated with absolute bullshit.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easier to just market with the same style, even if it's not marketed towards the same people.
Yeah. One thing that does make me feel better, at least I'm someone who does want more of the the depth and like player challenge, right? When fighting other people.
Mhm.
Um, one YouTuber put it really well. I can't remember. I think it was. No, I'm not gonna say because I can't remember.
No, no name drops. That's a rule in the
What he
podcast. No
said
name
was
dropping.
that oh no, it was Kizzy. Yeah, it was Kizzy.
Ah, Kizzy. Okay.
Yeah, Kizzy K.
Link in the description to Kizzy's channel.
What he said
We got
was
the link in the description to my channel.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll give you like a fucking talking head and everything if you want. You want me to just throw that at the beginning?
No, that's fine.
Ah, I'll throw it in right here.
okay.
Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt Ben.
No,
It's
no.
all right. But yeah, what he said was that they're making this game for new players now, but I think they also understand that the new players aren't going to stick around forever. Probably stick around for a couple months, play the game off and on, right? But the dedicated people is probably who they're going to make the game for once it gets updated. They're probably going to make it more fun for those people because they're the
Yeah.
people who are going to
You
stay.
did bring that up earlier. Is the same? They got the same reaction when they released Xrd initially, where like it
Yeah.
wasn't like they're saying basically the same shit about Strive. It's like, oh fuck, what have you done?
Yeah, but like you
It's
do have to
just-
get the fine line. It's okay to criticize the game, but you should do it in a respectful way where you realize that it is going to be changed.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
that's
same
okay.
thing with like everything though. Is it's like, oh, we
Yeah.
introduced this new thing. It's like, oh, here's a new movie in this franchise you like, and it's like, oh, they ruined the franchise. It's
Right.
unwatchable. It's
Right.
like, oh, here's the new, I don't know,
Matrix. New
here's
Matrix.
the new Magic the Gathering set.
God
And they're
damn it.
like, oh, this is fucking terrible. It's awful. And then everyone still is there 3 months later, still enjoying it. And it's like,
Buying up all the
"Well, you're gonna-"
packs.
Exactly. And it's like, whatever, dude. It's like, you're going to still play it. It's still good. It's just slightly different than what you're used to.
Yeah, well, even as like a new player, as someone who's complained about the game a lot, I haven't took more than a week break since it came out.
Yeah. It's like,
Since I bought it.
it's still fun, right?
No,
Like, it's
seriously.
still
Yeah.
fun. Then it's like, that's all it comes down to is if the game's fun. Like,
Also,
it's everything else is just details.
I will be mildly mean when I say this though. If Xrd had rollback, I would probably be playing more Xrd. I'm
I
just
mean
saying.
that, and if it wasn't dead.
Just because a
that's
game just because a
That's
game has a new iteration in the franchise, that doesn't mean the other ones are bad, you know?
That is also
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I can still catch
Well-
people playing Street Fighter 4 on PS3.
I still play Street Fighter 4 on PS4 every now and then.
Wait,
still
it's on
fire it up, there's
PS4?
playing. Yeah, there's a PS4 port.
Oh,
That's the
fuck yeah.
tournament standard.
It's cool.
I'm gonna have to pick that shit up.
PS4 port's the tournament standard.
Gotcha.
Oh no, yeah, and then there's like a Power Rangers update coming out next month, and those characters look nuts. Like God.
Power Rangers was a game I always wanted to get into, but man, I just have such a hard time devoting time to fighting games now. They're like a really big investment in time. You have to like really want to do it, which
Well, what I like about when it just getting into it with the newest Guilty Gear is that like you know how like you look at a character's move lists and then a lot of games it's just like a string of like the combo, you know?
Yeah.
In Guilty Gear, if they show you what the move is, there's a little movie and they tell you how to use it. So like I just skimmed through that. Yeah, no, seriously, like I just skimmed through that and I was ready to play in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Whereas with like Mortal Kombat, was it like 13? Whatever one we were playing? Then
X.
X?
10. That was
10. Okay.
I was playing that with you guys for a little bit.
Yeah, I remember that. I just only played Scorpion because I was like I looked through his move list and I'm like, oh, it's the same since fucking Mortal Kombat 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that and he had they did that and they have variations, which also turns people off. Like,
Yeah,
more
that's true.
choices.
You know, he has a lot of new stuff in X, but like his core moveset was primarily unchanged. That's why I played fucking Scorpion.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on there to be a game that I like really care about. Like I was never like a big Guilty Gear player. Like I enjoy the games. I've touched them. I've dabbled. But it's like Strive came out and everyone was hyped for it, and I'm like, this game looks cool, but like I never wanted to like invest time in it, which is like it's fine.
I mean, you ever pick it up, you let us know. We'll fucking go toe to toe with you.
I'm holding out on there being a Persona 5 Arena.
Oh,
Ooh,
wait, didn't they just put one of those out
I would try that.
not too long ago?
They put out a different Persona 5 game, but they've been milking the teat of Persona 5 for like years.
Hey, I've noticed. He's
And
even in
I'm pretty
Smash.
sure Persona 4 Arena sold incredibly well. I'm pretty sure they're going to do a Persona 5 Arena at some
And Arceus
point.
is doing well too. So.
Well, how do those games even play? I remember we touched on that a little
They
bit
play
back
like
in the
Blaze
day.
Blue.
Oh,
they're a lot like Blaze Blue.
Oh, fuck yeah. Okay. I mean, if one ever does drop, let me know.
Did you play Blaze
I'm always
Blue
trying to
Cross
learn.
Tag?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Either of you play Blaze Blue Cross Tag?
Oh no, I didn't do BB tag. I was
Yeah,
thinking about it for a little while.
It's like that, but without a tag system. But
Oh.
yeah, they're fairly simple to pick up, but it's cool. So I'm holding out for like that, or maybe like if there's like another entry in the Versus series, I'll pick that up. But like until then, I'll just be resting on my laurels, playing my old boomer games.
Well, I saw that sick ass bison kill you got. Fucking, what was that, like 2 or 3 months ago?
Oh yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, that was some sick fucking shit. Like I put that on the one of my discords.
Bison or not Bison, Street Fighter 4, man, it's just like there's something else about that game. It's got its fair share of problems, but
Yep.
like I can't it's whenever I play it, it's like coming home, you know? It's like I'm just like this is such a fun game.
No, I know what you mean. I still like fucking do some online with like Cody and some online with Seth. I'm just like, man, I wish I was better doing full circles.
Yeah, when DBFZ came out, I was playing with David because he'd moved up here, and we were playing. And David's really good at fighting games, and he like spends a lot of time playing them. He's like one of the top Under Night and Birth players in the country right now.
Oh shit!
But he was just like fucking kicking my ass with Ginyu over and over. I like felt my soul leaving my body for hours. And he's like, you know what? Let's fire. He could like tell I was like not doing so hot. And he's like, hey, I've got Street Fighter 4 on the computer. You want to play that? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Start playing it. I'm back in it. Like we played that shit till like 3 a.m. It's just like the fucking
Nice.
it's so good. When a game's good, it just hits different, you know?
No, dude, that's like Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. That's what that exact thing is for me. Is like I can play that game for hours. I've farmed up every quest. I'm like fucking slowly crawling my way through G rank because I know like once I get to the end of G rank, that's it. I got nothing else to do, and I'm just hanging out and having fun. Like I could be fucking going around gathering mushrooms for like 5 hours. And I still love playing that game.
Speaking of Monster Hunter, why don't you pick up Marvel Infinite, bro? I'll play that anytime.
Dude, I've had Marvel Infinite for like 6 months.
Send me an invite whenever you're playing.
All right. Well, you're just like never on, bro. Like where you be?
Watching Netflix.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, like I've been working out of town, and it looks like I'm gonna be working out of town for the rest of this next week as well. So I kind of
Yeah,
fucked.
Just message me on Discord.
All right.
But yeah,
Hopefully you'll start the LAN cable.
that doesn't have to do with this what we're doing now.
No.
So,
Lovely little tangent, isn't it?
yeah.
That's actually really fun. That's how I feel about Soul Calibur. That was what got me into fighting games. I don't do it anymore though. This netcode sucks. No one wants to try it.
I mean, I got
Yeah.
Soul Calibur 6. You know what that's about?
Yeah, we enjoyed that.
Oh
but
fuck yeah.
we can both agree that that play was only good.
It wasn't downright terrible. I never had really any particular issues with it.
Playing offline also hits different, you know. It's like you can play online even if it's with someone you know and it's like a good connection, but it's like you play offline, it's just like this fucking hit, dude. Let's go.
Right? It's just like there's no delay, the frame rate's stable. Like there's like the only lag you have to worry about is fucking controller lag. It's just like fuck, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Xr's net play is bad when it's asking you to if you want to set mandatory frame delay on arcade mode just so you can get used to it.
Yep.
Whoa. Although to be fair, that's actually a really cool idea though. Just to be fair, like
yeah, but
it's like how many right, but like you like fucking Manage was saying, like it's a different animal playing online as opposed to playing in person. So like
Yeah.
the developer having the forethought to put training wheels on the fucking arcade mode so you're ready for the online mode, that's some big ups. That shows that they're actually having fucking shit turning in their noggins. They weren't just cranking the
Yeah,
wheels.
I'm just glad we don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, no. On the other side, that was some fucking bullshit. Like, get better netcode. Like, what the fuck you doing with your lives?
I know. Another very, very last point that I wanted to bring up, at least for me, right? In my opinion, the thing that teaches me how to play a fighting game the best, or at least that I've enjoyed, I did it with Skullgirls, and I was like, holy crap, why are combo trials in every game, right? Even if it's just simple stuff. Because now my brother Zach did it, and he was just like, I don't want to just do all these combos all the time. And I'm like, you're not thinking about it right. What I learned from doing combo trials in Xrd and in Skullgirls was that it taught me how to do a little fundamental thing with that character, but I could do it in different ways in different situations. It taught me that that was possible. So now
Yeah,
it's crazy how cool that is. It's
yeah.
such an
Combo
exciting
trials,
moment too.
when they're implemented well, can be awesome. Like Skullgirls is just like worlds ahead of a lot of other fighting games. Like especially when Skullgirls first came out, like that game was just because it was made by people that were made by like professional fighting game players.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's just it was galaxies ahead of anything else that was on the market at the time as far as it's like
Well, shit.
training.
The developers of that game, they've been like drawing fan art like of that shit like since 5 years before they even started the fucking Kickstarter. You know, like
Yeah.
you can tell like they're super passionate about it. And they just want it to be the best thing in their eyes.
I wish it just didn't look so wacky. Like I wish the art style was a little bit more standardized, but
I
it's a
mean,
very
on that Razor's Edge, like Street Fighter also has like pretty like weird, wacky like that guy's feet ain't supposed to be that big kind of art style, you know.
yeah.
Feet are so weird. Feet are so weird, man.
Well, that's just the thing with Street Fighters, the exaggerated
Not to
limbs,
highlight
like that, and like people's skin colors are like super jank in that game. Like, what the fuck's wrong with a Hakan? Why he be red? And like his wife and his daughters are normal colored, so it's just like, what happened?
He's from Turkey.
Ah, you know, it's probably from all the oil he rolls around in, because he's a fucking Turkish oil wrestler. Because yeah, that's a thing.
Hakan's
Oh.
I thought oil wrestling was the national sport of Turkey. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
No, I don't quote me on that. I don't know jack shit about turkey other than the fact it's delicious.
Man, Hakan
Like it?
was something else. I don't know if he's not in 5, is he?
I don't know. I only bought the pack that had Cody in it, and that came with like Sakura, what's her face, and like one other guy.
Thanks for being so specific, buddy. That was
You got it,
you really
Chumbo.
Hey.
Well, you know
Hey.
me, man. I'm a fucking one-trick pony, and like Street Fighter 4, I only play Cody, and sometimes Seth. In Street Fighter 5, I only play Cody and Cody. In fucking Guilty Gear, I only play Soul and fucking sometimes Dolphin Girl.
Ew.
Fuck
the
you.
second character, not the first character.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, man, what you were right, it is oil wrestling. I looked it up.
Wow, I'm the smartest motherfucker in the room.
You read the fucking Wikipedia page, and you know it. Don't fucking bullshit me, man.
I read it like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
All its attention,
you're not the
motherfucker.
smartest motherfucker in the world. You're the most memorable
smarter, not
motherfucker
harder.
in the world, man. You
I said in
fucking
the
got.
room. I said in the
God.
room.
Oh, in the room. Okay, sorry. I heard that wrong. I'm obviously the deafest motherfucker in the room, so.
What?
I'm sorry, you say something?
What?
What? I think there's something wrong with your mic, Ben. You sound like Madwitch.
What?
Okay, it sounds like you're talking out your ass, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's it.
What was it? Roboting?
No, it's a fucking joke.
Super confused.
Yeah,
I
you
got
can't
so
make those
confused.
jokes with fucking Ben because he thinks we're serious. Because he has bad
My
internet
Wi-Fi
life.
goes out, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, just ignore that part. But no, yeah, honestly, yeah, that's about my feelings on the situation. Where it's just like, yeah, no, you can do it. You just have to be careful. And it like some fans are just gonna get mad anyway, so you have to have the mindset of it's okay to make some people mad because some people are just gonna get mad regardless.
No, and it's like,
Also-
what's it? It's that thing Max was saying. It's that like highly vocal minority. And it's like, well, people wonder why like developers don't listen to the fan base. It's because you have people that yell and scream and roll around in their own shit, screaming it smells like shit, and they're like, why should we listen to these people? They're fucking crazy.
Man, that was graphic.
Yeah, it was.
It's graphic imagery.
That's that's the shit I see every day on Twitter. Like, that's the world we live in.
Yeah. And to be fair, there are other things that I think they did well, but the major point is And one thing I was scared of seeing, but they didn't do this. They've done better. Where I was hoping that they wouldn't look at some of the people with valid criticism and just blanket it as hate and then move on. Because it's like there's a lot of good criticism in the movie toward Guilty Gear Strive that's not harmful. That's in fact very constructive and very helpful toward where we go with the game. And I'm glad that they're keying into that and working with us to make a really sick game.
No,
So I'm
seriously.
excited to play it in the future. I'm not as excited to play it right now. I did a bunch of it. It's a little tiresome, but it's really good. It's really good. So hopefully more fighting games.
Are those your closing thoughts, amigo?
At least on that topic, yeah.
All right. I mean, we've been going for about an hour. Want to wrap things up?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get going pretty soon too. So
Doesn't
All
matter.
right.
I mean, we've completely talked about everything, so yeah.
Well, roll outro. Roll it. Roll the outro.
am I supposed to be doing something?
I don't
Where
know.
my outro at? Okay. Yeah, go ahead and we'll just cut it there. I like that.